RPSM Talks.
RPSM Talks?
RPSM Talks.
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 Well, hello. Welcome, everybody. This is RPSM Talks, brought to you by Regent Park School of Music. RPSM is a music school providing music lessons to both the Regent Park and Jane and Finch communities for over 20 years by removing financial obstacles. Learn more about the school, please visit www.rpmusic.org. I'm Thompson, Egbo-Egbo. I'm your host this evening, and I've been a part of the school's journey from the very beginning in many different iterations. And today, my new job is as host of RPSM Talk. So I'm glad to be here with you. Wonderful. So today we are chatting about who's on your team. The topic of today's chat, and it is my pleasure really to kind of just go down this journey with everyone. We've got a couple of different panelists today. We're actually going to try something different this talk, and we're going to have a sort of a interview style with what I would call an advisor or mentor, if you will. And I'm going to introduce a friend of mine, Chris Taylor, who is I'll have to ask him if he's still president and CEO of E1. I feel like Hasbro is now a part of that title as well. Chris, how's it going?
Hi, Thompson. Yeah, good to see you. Doing good.
Great.
It's global president.
Global president. I knew it because was it CEO at one point?
No, not in this incarnation. No.
Okay.
Just global president for now.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's a smaller title, I guess. Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks so much for having us. I'm super excited to chat with you for a number of reasons. One, just because you're one of the coolest people I know, but you've also occupied a number of different roles in the music industry. And so as somebody who has been on different sides of the coin, and so you've spent time, a lot of people don't know, as an artist as well. And obviously through your law practice. And so for me, it's kind of now really great to start this conversation. You know, the plan of this talk for the students is really just to kind of demystify what's going on with the music industry, and where I wouldn't even say necessarily what is the starting point, but where are some of the ingredients. So if we're going to be like cooking a meal, there's some, ingredients you kind of need, give or take in each meal to kind of get you started. And then, those are your baselines. And so we're going to explore that together. And I'm happy to kind of just do it with you. And I'm going to use you as our sounding board to get the advice. So today, we've got a manager, we've got an agent, we've got a lawyer. And so what I'm probably going to do is first we're going to speak to our manager, who's Matt Maw. But from you, I'm going to just kind of get an idea of, if you're advising, one of the students or someone new in their career and wanting to kind of get out there, and they're deciding, hey, you know what, I think I need a manager. What are some of the things you would tell them to look for, ask about, really want to understand about that role?
Yeah, I tell artists all the time, aim, why not try for the greatest manager in the world? And I use this with, probably all the roles we're going to talk about today. I'd say, who's your favorite artist? And, I did this, I call this sort of lawyer roulette or manager roulette. If somebody says it's Jay-Z, well, who's the manager? Jay-Z's self-managed, so that's probably a bad example. But if somebody was to say VR Kells, who we manage, you track them down, aim high, aim as high as possible, first and foremost. And you can track them down these days. When I was coming up in the business, it was a lot harder to find people. Now we have this Google machine that allows you to find people and track them down, and you start there.
Oh, that's awesome. Sorry, I'm just going to lower my mic a bit. I've been told I'm a little hot. Um, so there we go, turning it down. So that actually brings up a great question, because a friend of mine, I was actually just listening to a talk earlier today by RBC, and they were doing an RBC music thing. And there was a lovely lady from Remix, and she just said, be bold, and just calls people. It's easy to call people ready to ask you questions. If you're going to be doing that and going to say you're going to make that leap of faith, and so you pick an artist and you're like, okay, if we keep it with sort of the Arkells, and somebody wants to reach out to Ashley, and what are they looking for, or what are they hoping to get her attention?
You can find most people on Instagram these days as well. So a lot of communication is happening that way. Ideally, and what typically happens is managers are approaching you. So I don't know that Ashley or the manager for Bruno Mars or anyone else is kind of scouring the landscape for artists that haven't achieved certain levels of success. So I would focus on that first and foremost. I mean, I guess I could skip the whole part of this, which is write amazing songs.
Yeah.
Get the world to fall in love with them, because then the managers appear, and a lot of them appear because they're all following the same data. They all have the same list. They're all looking at the same 100 to 200 acts that are happening. They all have the same relationships at SoundCloud or Spotify or wherever else where they're getting tipped off about things that are happening. So I would harvest there to start. And to the extent you start getting exciting data or exciting music or exciting reviews, or things start to happen, you can track people down on Instagram. And I would start with the data first and foremost, because that's what's going to get people's attention. I put out a song yesterday, and it already has 700,000 views on YouTube. Whatever that information is, they'll get to the creative and listen to the creative soon thereafter. But you start with some information that kind of puts you out in front of the pack, because these people are getting hit on every day, multiple times.
Awesome. So before I head over to Matt and just kind of debrief with him, if I've now done that, so I've kind of got myself a little bit of a following, whatever my local market is. I've gotten a couple songs going, Spotify, there's some tunes going, or however I've done it through TuneCore or whatnot. And somebody like the amazing Matt Maw, says, hey, listen, I saw what you're doing. I'm interested. What is the information I'm trying to glean from him to understand whether or not the two of us would be a good fit?
With managers, I like to look at other artists that they're managing. That's a really good indicator of capabilities. Two, recognize, people don't always end up with the manager that they start with. So it's great to aim high and try to get the manager for Taylor Swift or Celine Dion or whoever you're in love with. But sometimes it's great to start with a manager that just has a lot of passion and ambition for what you're doing. And that is the story of the music business. Everyone starts out with a manager like that that's super eager, well-spoken, organized, perhaps willing to do a trial period to show you what they can do. Those would be some of the things I'd be talking about, I think, in the first meeting. Who else do you work with?
Perfect. Yeah.
Well,
if you don't mind, I'm going to keep you in the wings now, and I'm going to jump over to Matt, who is our manager on deck today, and bring him in. So Matt Maw, thank you so much for joining us. Matt is Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, director and lead artist manager for Red Rising Music. You've been in the industry for over 10 plus years. Locally trained, so went to the Harris Institute, and one of your big things is sort of the development and amplification of Indigenous artists. Thanks for joining us. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
oh, it's hey, my pleasure, and I think you know, I know you were listening earlier. This has been actually a really great journey for me, just because, I've done what some of the kids have done. I've gone through the music schools, and one of the things I think is kind of missing is just like, how do you make sense of everything you've done? So
Definitely.
we were just chatting with Chris and Chris Taylor, obviously, and just from a standpoint of, if if I'm an artist, I'm a kid at the school, and I've, started my music career, however that looks. And so I've started, one of the things we established is we've started our own following, maybe a bit of a cult following, if you will. We've got people who care about what we're doing locally. We've now sort of like building up our numbers on our either SoundCloud or, wherever we're putting out the music, maybe it's Bandcamp. And then someone like you sort of stumbles across what's going on. And so one of the things, I would sort of, if you gave me a call and I say to you, great, who are you and what can you do for me? Like, why am I listening to you?
Fair. I mean, that's a totally valid question. Who are you and why are you calling me? So the way that I like to break down what a manager does, at its core, the manager is the first line of defense between the artist and then the rest of the world and the rest of the industry. So I, as an artist manager with my, my artist clients day to day, I act as the basically like the first line of defense, the shield between the artist and the agent, or the artist and the publicist, or the artist and the record label, or the artist and the audience. So it's my job basically to interact with all of those different parties and conduct the artist's business on their behalf in the rest of the music industry. So to engage the rest of the industry and do all of the business that I do day to day on behalf of the artist, with the artist's best interest always in mind. I'm the artist's like first line of defense, but also the artist's biggest advocate, biggest fan, biggest supporter, biggest cheerleader. I'm there to say no on behalf of the artist if there's something that I think that is not in their best interest. Obviously always talking with the artist, but also being able to step out in front and be the bad guy and say no. But also I'm the guy who gets to say yes to all of the awesome stuff that I help bring to the artist. Working alongside an agent to bring live performance opportunities to the artist, working alongside the publicist to make sure that the artist, the artist releases a song and we get that really awesome placement in the press that we're looking for, or we get that news piece, or we get that get that shine wherever the publicist and the artists have identified that they want to go. So I wear a lot of different hats depending on the day and depending on the artist and depending on the point in the artist's career. But yeah, to sum it up, first line of defense and biggest supporter of the artist and the rest of the world.
Now, so, and that all sounds good. But if I'm coming to you and I look at, who's on your roster, and one of the things, I think people are concerned about is, are you going to really pay as much attention to me as the guy who's making you a little bit more, a little bit more money, who's got a bit of a bigger name, and where do I fit into that ecosystem if I'm just starting off and trying to find my own way and maybe not totally sure what to do?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Chris just sort of, he made a really good point that it depends on where the manager is at their career as well, like depending on the size of the artist that they're working with. So that's a really good question that artists of any stage need to be asking really early on in a conversation with the manager. I also think that Chris mentioned something really, really important about the artist manager and the artist having an opportunity to maybe have a little bit of a trial. If the manager is, it sort of has to prove themselves as well. It's always going to depend on the manager individually, because everyone sort of does their business their own way. I can say though from personal experience that working with maybe more developing or younger artists that have come to me with that question, and we've started a conversation about maybe working together, and that question's come up and said, like, how do I know that you're going to pay as much attention to me as this other person who's further along in their career, or doing bigger things, or just more active right now. And the way that I tend to approach that conversation is that most of the time, if I'm entering into a working relationship with someone new as a manager, my preface is always to have an agreement in place, but that is essentially what Chris mentioned earlier, the trial version. And I sort of liken it to dating before you get married. Instead of just getting married and saying we're going to be together forever, we'll do it the right way, and there'll be an agreement, and everyone will have their terms, and so everyone knows what they're responsible for or not responsible for. But the term isn't going to be forever and ever. The term is going to be 3 months, 6 months. Let's date. Let's get to know one another. I love your music and you want to work with me, but maybe we don't get along in the long run, or maybe we do and it's perfect. Or maybe you say you're a really good communicator, but maybe you're not. So that likening of dating and that sort of like courtship period is really, really, it's important for me, because I think that it's important for the artist as well to be able to have that period to get to know someone and get comfortable with them, because this, it's at the end of the day, it's a relationship. It's a working relationship, but it's still a relationship, and it's a really intimate relationship, because I want to be your biggest supporter and go out into the world and make sure that everyone knows who you are, but I gotta like you first as a person to be able to do that.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that insight. I'm gonna jump back to Chris, because we're gonna bring you back anyways to kind of go a little deeper and find some other things. But I really appreciate that, and I know you have some more to say, so we're gonna come back to that. Thanks, Chris. So that went well, and I really liked the fact that Matt just, it was very clear that one of the things I truly believe is that relationships are key to like anything you want to do in life, and so I think it's important for people to know that sometimes even the best manager may not be best for you, and so that relationship piece is incredibly important. Moving along though, if we're now going to start thinking about an agent, and that the difference between those roles, and because we know that for different artists, there's not necessarily a checklist in terms of when these people have to come into your career or come into your life. But what are some of the things, and I know some of the answers are sort of similar in terms of already what you've been able to do on your own. But what are some of the reasons why you would want to go to an agent, and what are the things you'd kind of be looking for from them?
Yeah, primarily on the agent side, you're looking for someone to find you live opportunities. So playing shows. And in an early part of your career, that could be club shows at places like the Horseshoe Tavern or the Lee's Palaces of the world, or it could be finding opening slot opportunities. So you're the group that goes on before the big group and kind of opens the show. But that's primarily what agents are responsible for. I agree with what Matt was saying. Managers probably is the most important player on an artist team. That's your most important decision, because they are interacting with everybody on everything. There's no job description. And you say, well, what do you do? It's just like you do everything. When your artist calls, you help with almost everything. and all the best managers in the world work that way. On the agent side, it is primarily focused on live touring, although they do work on things like endorsements or sponsorships and things like that as well. But the core is the live business.
Perfect. And so we've got Baldeep, who's standing in the wings waiting for us. If I'm going to ask him, I think probably some of the questions are going to be similar. If I'm going to ask him, like, why am I going in that relationship? I know you mentioned earlier understanding who's on the manager's already roster. Are we thinking the same way with agents and who we want to approach? That they're maybe in the same genre, or we want somebody who's got maybe a more collective group of artists that they're working with?
I think it's some similar items that you would look at. What I would say in the agency field, a lot of them are housed in pretty reputable firms. So there's very few agents that you meet with. And Baldeep, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you don't sort of meet an agent who's like, hey, I'm going to be an agent. Let's get together and do this together. It's like usually they're working somewhere at a whether it's CAA or William Morris or UTA or APA. There's 10 reputable booking agents around the world, maybe a few more than that. Whereas on the manager side, you do get a cross section of managers that are at larger firms, and then managers who are doing it as a part-time job who, just they want to be a manager and they think it's pretty easy or something. So there's some safety in that, I think, in terms of agents. I'm not saying this just because the agents are on the phone with us tonight, but most of the agents you'll run into are fairly reputable and with a complementary roster. Because again, like I said, you want some opening gigs. If you are a band that you think you're the next Metallica, maybe it'd be great to be with the agent that is the agent for Metallica, or bands that are in that sort of vein, that kind of thing. I do think it's a personal relationship, again, not as personal as the management relationship, but I think it's a personal relationship, and some people like different agents for different characteristics, depending on who they are and what they're looking for.
Awesome. We're gonna bring in Baldeep Randhawa, and we're gonna get some of his thoughts. I'm gonna Baldeep, thanks for joining us. You're with the agency. This is fun for us to do this. This is just, again, back to sort of the demystifying what are all these roles, who is spending time with us. I've said that I think that the relationship with the agent and the artist is one of the most honest relationships, because you do stuff for us, and that's what you kind of make your money off of, as opposed to kind of just being there and taking stuff from everything else we do. Tell me about some of the artists that you work with, how people come to you, what is it that if you're starting out budding artists in the industry, what is something that would get your attention, and what would make you want to work with someone?
Perfect. So yeah, I've been with APA for about like 3-4 years now. Before that, I had my own agency as well too. That kind of like Chris was talking about. I wanted to be an agent, and I wanted to get in there, and I didn't want to start off as an assistant, and I wanted to just do it. And so I started my own agency. But what happened is as soon as I'd get an artist really big, a bigger agency would come in and steal them. So I eventually got. My company got bought out by APA, and then I joined APA. So like over there, I work with artists. I work with the multiple artists from different genres. But for instance, like Bryce Vine, Young Dolph, I handle his Canadian business. Like Sean Hook, Just John, Hawaii Mighty, Just Rain. I do a lot of his touring comedy and help him a bit with his acting side as well too, and many more. Artists, so from folk to hip hop and everything in between, and essentially like we come on board in different stages of an artist's career. So some artists I'm working with day one before they even have a manager, and some I'm the last one to join the team once they're success. So essentially it varies per artist. And for me, when I'm looking at an artist, I'm primarily focused on their live touring. So can they perform live, or can they interact with an audience? Have they been on stage before? And are they gonna be around for a while? Because like our job as a music agent essentially is not necessarily to be an employment agent. We're a career agent, so we're here for the long term. We don't make money off like one hit wonders who can tour once. Like we want them to have a lasting career for 20 years, because an agent doesn't get paid unless you play shows, and we want to see the success for our artists. So essentially, if an artist really speaks to me, and I think they have that kind of it factor and they can connect to an audience, is what really gets me excited and gets me on board.
Awesome. So where have you run into some of these artists? So from, in terms of just kind of like that first introduction, are you going out to shows? Are you heading to the Horseshoe Tavern and doing one of their, hanging out one of their open mics, or people sending you tapes? So much has changed, just kind of how the digital space has really transformed the atmosphere right now, or the landscape, I should say. How are you finding the newer artists?
Yeah, so essentially, like what we always say is like, we'll find you. So we're constantly talking to everybody else in the industry. A lot of the times, like a PR person will reach out, a management will reach out and be like, you have to check this person, or I'll get an email from a label. They'll be like, this artist is popping right now, come check it out. And that's how a lot of the artists kind of come to our table. But at the same time, is like every day I'm getting different emails from newer artists, and I take the time to listen to every single one. And I've definitely signed people from an email, or for instance. Like I was emailing with this one artist who will not be named, but they had millions of streams, and like it looked like great business, and like I thought it was going to be fantastic. So I went to see them live, and it was the worst show I've ever seen in my life. I lasted 3 songs and I walked out because he had no idea how to perform on stage. So I went across the street to another club that I knew someone else was booking a show, and I ended up signing an artist there who I didn't expect to, because she blew me away. And then it was like I literally stopped talking to the guy and listened to her for 4 songs, and then talked to her after and signed her. And now I've been working with her for a year, and she's starting to do well. So it's like a large part is talking to the community, but like I'm also, like, when Corona's not here, is going to like 5 shows a week. I'm constantly at venues, constantly discovering, constantly reading blogs and seeing who's hit. But there's no exact science to it, is what I would say. But like it's really just kind of going out there and exposing yourself to multiple different artists, and really trying to listen and see kind of what's the next big artist.
Well, no, that's great to hear, because again, I think reinforces that sometimes we think there's a certain path that we have to go through to kind of get to whoever it is, but one of those things is kind of doing what you do, doing it well, and then being available to kind of for people to see you, like you. Wonderful. So I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to jump back to Chris one last time as we kind of dive down what the laureate path looks like, and then we're going to bring everybody together to kind of go into how everyone has gotten into their role. So, Chris, thanks again for being here, sticking around, and clearly you've enjoyed looking at me. So that's why you're still here. You have spent a lot of time. Or a big portion of your career, amongst other things, as a lawyer, and you've been quite successful. I would say that you're kind of, probably still are kind of the it guy. You've been at one point Drake's lawyer. You've had a really good. You've had really good success with the artists you've worked with. I was watching. This past summer, I was watching a documentary, and you're probably going to hate me for saying this because I'm sure someone said it to you before. I was watching a documentary on Clive Davis, and I'm like, oh, that's Chris Taylor, but like Chris is cooler, and, just thinking about the path that Clive's been on, and just some of the work you've done and how important it has been to the Canadian industry. Not to dive into that, because that's not the conversation, but now if we're thinking about where a lawyer comes in, and I think similar to a lot of these other roles, there's different places where these people come in. They come in and out, or they're, sometimes maybe the lawyer piece might be a bit more transactional. Maybe you just need them for some contracts to be done, but then there's other pieces to it. For you, what are some of the types of things that someone might need from a lawyer, may go to them for, or if it's a journey that they're on with a lawyer, what are some of those reasons why they might enlist somebody of those talents and skills?
Yeah, no, thanks, Thompson. And I think, some of the same questions that you might ask for the other players would be similar here as well. I think having an impressive roster is an indicator, at least one indicator, that you know what you're doing. So if someone is the lawyer for Drake, he could work with any lawyer in the world. If he's working with someone, chances are that lawyer probably knows what they're doing. Then it does come down to a personality decision as well. People like to work with lawyers that they like to work with. You want to know that they can do the job. There's a lot of detailed work with lawyering, as you can imagine. You're reading 100-page agreements, making sure things aren't slipping by and all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I think lawyers can also play a role in helping assemble teams for reporting artists. So lawyers will often provide introductions to managers or agents, publishers, record companies, different industry partners that you might be looking for. They can play a role in that regard, in addition to doing the hardcore sort of legal work, paperwork, negotiating, drafting, and interpreting contracts all day, every day. There's also a bit of a matchmaker component for music lawyers as well. I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something that actually I didn't know was actually possible. I know that just kind of some of the exposure now that I've had to different entertainment lawyers, where I have artist friends who the only thing they actually have is a lawyer. They don't have the agent or the manager. And because that's kind of worked for them in terms of the progression that they're on. And so it's great to kind of hear that there is sort of this other stream or other realm of work. And I think probably that goes to, if they've been seeing all these agreements, they're probably seeing a lot of the same people. So they know who's good at their job, who isn't. We've got Laura, who's with us. So I'm going to jump over to her, and we're going to have a little chat about this and what she does for artists. So Laura Wilson-Lewis, thanks for being here. You have to get the guys at the firm to update the website, because you're not there, and that's not good. You were at a sort of, I would say, a smaller but mighty firm, and the roster of artists who kind of associated are pretty impressive. I've loved the Christmas parties. And I still do. Can't wait to get back there. I'm coming to you. I've just kind of finished up, or maybe I'm still at the Regent Park School of Music. I've got a couple of songs. Maybe somebody placed my song somewhere, and maybe they didn't give me the credit for it. But I think that there's some talent, and I want to take that further. And I think one of the steps I need to make is kind of sit in your office and have a chat with you. What is maybe some of the guidance, or what are some of the things you're going to be looking for to speak with me about or discover, and get to understand a little better?
Right. Thanks so much. First of all, thank you, Thompson, for having me. So that's a really good question. When somebody comes into the office, it's really, what are the opportunities that you are being presented with, and what is your vision? The lawyer's job is to make sure that all of the legalities, all of the path that they have to travel is as smooth as possible, and they can do everything in compliance, whatever that might mean for that particular agreement, so that they can achieve their goal. So if they want to move forward and make sure that they are getting the credits, make sure that whatever is being synced, they want to make sure that they're getting the funding for it, making funding as in payment. They want to make sure that their name is being appropriately credited. I would go over the agreement with them to make sure that what they are looking for is actually happening. And if it's not, figuring out how that can be possible.
What are some examples of, I came into your office, I have this agreement, I think it means one thing, and you say that's not what's there at all.
Right. That does happen. And so the lawyer's job is about communicating that to the client. Okay, this might not be what you think it is. This is what it is. When I read it, this is what my understanding of it is. Sometimes people have conversations with the person on the other side and they say, well, they told me that it would be this, this, and that. But when I'm reading the agreement, the things that they have said in that conversation is not reflected on paper. So it's just making sure that, there is an understanding of what the agreement says. Sometimes those are hard conversations with the artist if they're expecting something different. But that's what the lawyer's job is to make sure that before they sign the dotted line, they understand what it is that they're signing and, identifying any opportunities for negotiation if what they actually have before them is not what they thought it would be.
Cool. And sort of last question before I bring everybody together, what is kind of the spectrum of artists that you're using? And I use that term loosely. So I'm thinking anything from like, sound designers to, people who do soundtracks to actual performing artists. What's kind of that, what are maybe some of the roles not as obvious of people you're interacting with?
So the spectrum is really broad. It's everyone who you said and everyone in between. Engineers, songwriters, indie labels, bands, managers, artists, of course. Anyone who is in the infrastructure, in the ecosystem, on an artist's team or in the music industry in some way, they can come through our doors and we can help them.
I'm interested in the engineer part. What would an engineer come to you for?
Well, it depends. There might be whatever, if there's an independent contract agreement, it depends with a particular project. Maybe they are being asked to participate on a full project with a bunch of folks, and if they are somebody who is more notable, do they get any splits or is it just a fee? Things like that.
Cool. And so splits would be if, somebody writes a song and they get a little piece of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, not to go too deep into the technical publishing, all that kind of stuff, but just making sure that, if you did participate in some way, that you are getting a piece of the pie.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to bring everybody back just so we can kind of open it up a little bit. Just a reminder, if people have questions, they can put into the chat. Otherwise, when we get to sort of the question answer period, we'll go there. I had a question in my mind and I lost that train of thought. So I'm going to wait for it. Wait. Okay, it's back. It's back there. The what's kind of cool about some of these roles, and if I think about just kind of my path in music, and my parents thought it was great that I played the piano, but wanted me to have nothing to do with the music industry. And so I feel like if they were sitting in and watching this talk, they'd be like, wow, see, there's a lawyer. You can be a lawyer and still do music. There's somebody who's gone to kind of business school or who's done, they've gone and gotten a degree that actually meant something. What I'm actually curious, and I'm going to kind of go around, which is really the part of kind of just, again, illuminating the different roles in the industry, where people fall in, how people are kind of, have flirted with different sides of that. Just understanding a little bit of what kind of got you to your position. What are the decisions that led to you? Baldeep, I'll start with you. What are kind of some of the decisions that led to you saying, you know what, I really want to be, an agent. And I think this is kind of the path for me.
For sure. So when I was in school, my degree is actually in human resources. Never took a music or entertainment class in my life. But what happened is while I was in school, I started getting involved on campus by programming their events, programming their concerts, and I was DJing on the side and just immersed. And that's what was bringing me joy. Then what happened is right before I graduated, I got a really good high-paying job at an HR firm, and I lasted 2 months before I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I was like dealing with people's problems, being very firm, which is not necessarily me. And I felt like something was missing, and the music portion was really bringing me joy. So at that time, I accepted a different programming job at another college, and then I started booking the Burlington Sound and Music Festival, and then started slowly branching out on the promoter side. But what always interested me was the agent and representation aspect of it. So it was like I want to be there from the ground and like really work for the artist, because that's what was passionate for me. And like me being like a small brown kid from Brantford, looking at all the agents, I didn't really see many people that looked like me. And it was kind of more of a passion thing to be like, I want to get in there, I want to do this, and I want to work on some of the artists that aren't getting the representation, work on like the Bhangra artists that are coming from Brampton, work on some of like the dance hall artists that people might not be focusing on, and really start branching out. So that's why when you look at my roster, it's very diverse, because it's like, that's what I was passionate about, is helping those artists that didn't necessarily get the spotlight, and really like kind of run with that. So
Cool. You know what I really like about that is that just the using what's around you. Sometimes we think we need to go somewhere else or jump into a different area or a different community or something like that, and just being able to kind of use the tools and resources around you to kind of move forward. That's really great. Laura, did you fall into law on the music side, or was that always a part of that trajectory? Was that what you were gunning for?
I fell into law on the music side. I knew that I always wanted to be a lawyer, but I actually did my undergrad degree in physics. And so I thought that I was going to be a patent lawyer. Did my undergrad in physics, master's in medical biophysics, and I was like, I'm going to law school. I'm going to do patents. And I did. My story at that point is very similar to Baldeep. Loved it, but then when it was time to write an exam, so you need to write a patent agent exam if you want to, advance in that particular practice area. The pass rate for first-time writers of that exam was 3%. And I said, oh no, this is not gonna work for me. And so I had to pivot. I did all sorts of, lawyer jobs or law adjacent jobs. I was in-house counsel at a mid-sized organization, completely nothing to do with intellectual property, completely nothing to do with entertainment. And I just felt like I needed a change. A friend of mine who is an artist manager for an artist in the city, he was saying along the way, because I went to high school with him, I got into law school. Oh my gosh, you're a lawyer. Can you look at this agreement? No, I cannot. When I graduated, you're a lawyer. Can you look at this? No, I cannot. No, I'm not. When I was called to the bar, he's like, you're a lawyer. Can you look at this? I am a lawyer, but I can't. And then when it was time for me when I was feeling like I'm going to, make a switch, he was like, Laura, you're a lawyer now. Can you look at this? And I'm like, actually, yes. And then the rest was history. I left my job and I started my practice doing music law, and it's just been going and growing, and it's been amazing.
Awesome. Matt, I'll turn it over to you and get just a little brief, I guess, short story on what leads you to being an artist manager.
Yeah. So I, as a kid, was, lucky enough and privileged enough to have parents that saw value in a music education. I was playing piano from an early age. I was really heavily involved in music at my public high school. I was playing saxophone and I was singing in every choir that I could sing in. And at that point in my life, I thought that I wanted to go to post-secondary for music and for theater. And so I went to post-secondary for performance, for music and for theater. And then quickly realized that I had absolutely no interest in being a performer. I still loved music, I still loved theater, I loved that world, but I didn't love myself in that world. That wasn't really like the fit for me. And so I moved back home, and I was like, I need to figure out what I want to do next. And I fell into managing a record store, which was like, at the time, I was just like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. This is like exactly where I want to be. I get to I get to play the music. I get to be the DJ in the store and put on all the coolest stuff that only I know about, but I get to introduce people to walk in the door and say, who's this? What's this? I get to introduce people to their next favorite band. And I was like, I'd love to do that, but I don't think introducing people to their next favorite band or artist is a career. But then I, by coincidence, like pure coincidence, met someone working at that same record store who told me about Harris that you mentioned earlier. And up until that point, I had no idea that, the music industry was like a career option. I had no idea that you could go to school for the music industry. So I worked my butt off at that record store, and I picked up all the extra hours that I could, and I DJ'd a little bit, and I booked shows at a local club, and saved all the money I could to move back to Toronto and go to Harris. And then I went to Harris for the fastest year and a half of my life. Graduated and immediately started working 2 internships for free simultaneously, 5 days a week, and yeah, just made it work as best I could. And in the time since I've graduated up until now, I have worked in concert promotion, festival booking, artist management, label management, A&R, grant writing. And so I've gotten my feet wet in a bunch of different areas and sort of scratched all of those itches up until recently, that I realized, I still love doing all of those things, and I'd love to do them all simultaneously for people that I really believe in and really care about. Why don't I be a manager?
Awesome. I think, one of the things I think is unique to the music industry and what it offers is this opportunity to kind of be an entrepreneur, stay within the industry, and find the different roles and different kind of jobs to kind of do and, occupy your time. And I think at different points in your life, it'll require certain things and then require other things, which is a great segue to Chris, and just kind of, part of what your journey has been, which is, I don't know, I don't actually want to speak to it because I think I wouldn't do it any justice, but just knowing kind of the longevity that you've had in the industry, parts of where that has started, where it's led, and just kind of how you've transitioned from one place to another, different roles, how they've kind of come about. I'd love to hear your thoughts about, because clearly you didn't just fall into the music industry, but what kind of led to you sort of doing the music, doing sort of law school, being a lawyer, being the head of, one of the, biggest music and entertainment companies in the world. Because I think you're such an awesome person. So people have to do their own.
I think you're awesome too, Thompson.
Thanks. But this is one of those things that's going to live there, and then people can do their research and they'd be like, wow, that guy was on, like, oh man. But anyways, I digress. I'd love to hear from you about just what, just your path a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I loved everybody's story. Matt, in particular. I mean, I tell young people all the time, it's start now. Work at a record store, work at a college radio station, volunteer for a local promoter. Start now. Start doing something related to the music business now, because it all kind of heads in the right direction. And if you love what you're doing, I mean, I'm sitting here tonight listening to records, still thinking, it's like, this is my job. I cannot believe this. I'm listening to music. It's my job. It's just an incredible feeling, and I never take that for granted. I started in Windsor. I always played in bands. I thought I wanted to go to law school and be the Prime Minister of Canada, and then I realized I had to learn French. And while I was always in bands in high school. I was always in bands in university. I was always in bands in law school. And I was in a band in the middle of law school when I realized it's like, wait a minute, there are like music lawyers. There's like people that do lawyering in the music world. Maybe I could do that. But we started playing in the band. Actually, someone Stephanie works with, Jack Ross was my agent back in the early 90s. In law school, that band kind of took off. We were playing at Lee's Palace. We were doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday night by the end of law school. I'm like, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a rock star. Like, really, literally, like by the time law school finished, we got a van. We started touring all across Canada, making no money really in the early days, but just because I loved it so much. We did a record deal in '94, all the way taking names and numbers, right? And because you couldn't Google people back then, Google didn't exist back in the early 90s. So taking names, taking numbers, meeting people. My manager at the time is still one of my really good close friends, Chris Smith, who I know Jazz knows as well. Still somebody I work with to this day. Jack Ross's agent on the Art Kennels and Lights, people that I still work with to this day. So, that those foundations, those relationships that you put in place, 25 years ago, 30 years ago now, some of them are still, people that I work with every day. So, coming to the end of the band, I always say, well, by the time I'm 30, if I'm not as big as Bono, I'm going to quit. And it was 3 days before my 30th birthday. I had a huge argument with my band about something really stupid. And I was like, that's it. I quit. I'm going to be 30 in 3 days. This is not working. I'm going to quit. I'm going to be a music lawyer. So I started, building my practice. I was ready to start building the practice all by myself, sort of solo boutique, and just kind of figure it out. And then I got a call from Paul Sanderson, who's actually the author of the book Musicians and the Law in Canada. His firm represented my band when I was kind of coming up, so I knew him through that. And he gave me a desk and a phone, and just said, "Have at it, build a practice." And I was like Baldeep was mentioning, I was out at clubs 6-7 nights a week, just like seeing bands, listening to CDs, just building a practice. I started immediately going to the United States. I wanted to be the Canadian lawyer that could get you out of Canada and help find you record deals in America and have global success. So that was really kind of my unique selling proposition. So someone with connections globally that also had a good ear. Because back in that time, it wasn't a data informed approach. You had 50 CDs on your desk, and I'd go in the office on a Saturday and just start listening to them. It's like Nelly Furtado, 3 Days Grace, Billy Talent, Sum 41, Sam Roberts. You pick the needles out of a haystack and then introduce it to people and try to get them record deals. And that's how I built my practice. It was a lot of work. I worked insanely hard, but it was so much fun. It's still a ton of fun every day.
Awesome. That's great to hear. We have a segment right now that you kind of really just touched on, which is sort of taking the learning forward. And so, I'll steal your nuggets of work at the record store, what you said, start now. Laura, if we go with you just in terms of if we're taking the learning forward for the students who are listening, what's a book, what's a movie, what's a piece of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, absolutely. A piece of advice that I would give would be, don't be afraid of doing something because of the time it's going to take to do it, because the time is going to pass anyway. So whatever big dream you have, the time is either going to pass while you're working towards it, or the time is going to pass while you're running from it. And you can get encouragement from anywhere, everywhere. One book that I like to refer to often is called A Tribe of Mentors. And that's by Tim Ferriss. Yeah, and it's a collection of, some of the brightest minds across all industries, people who have, in front of us, it looks like they've achieved a lot of success, but there's a lot of steps that they have had to take to get there. And so just really humanizing the whole idea of what success means, and realizing that, like, even if you have a bit of a stumbling block, you can turn around to use it, to as a stepping stone to get ahead, and whatever it is that you're working for, just keep going and you'll get there.
Wonderful. Matt, piece of advice, book, movie, saying?
Piece of advice is just to, along the lines of what I did and what Chris sort of alluded to, was just like, do something, get involved with something, find your way into something, volunteer to if just get your feet wet in whatever way that you can. And at the same time as you're doing that, don't, like, it sounds really cliched, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be curious about how stuff works, and, like, really, if you've got a question, find the answer. Utilize the people around you and the resources that are available to you. Sort of like, you mentioned Thompson earlier, just sort of like use what you've got around you. You don't have to be way over there to start. You can start where you are right now. Like you yourself, Thompson, like the folks at the school, this ecosystem, are a wealth of knowledge, and a real incredible resource that everybody has available to them and accessible to them right now. So use what you've got in front of you, and utilize who you've got around you, and just get started.
Perfect. Baldeep, we'll end with you.
Yeah, like similar to the kind of what like Matt just said and all that, is literally start now. So when I realized that I wanted to be an agent, I didn't have access to larger artists, and no larger artist with a name was going to sign with me. So what I started doing was my friends in bands. I'm like, I won't take any commission off you. I want to learn. So I started booking all like my friends' bands tours, and then eventually they started giving me money because I was making them more money. But it really taught me a lot from the ground level. It was like one of the artists I first started with, who's still with me now, is Fateh, who's an East Indian rapper. But it started with him showing me a mixtape in our college dorm, and I just started like kind of helping him out, and got him some shows. And like then when I actually had my own agency, he came on board, and then when I joined APA, he followed me here as well too. And it really started organically, and by me working with those young bands and working with the scuzzy promoters and like the ones that I don't work with anymore, I learned so much by failing, and then learned how to really enhance the careers of the artists I work with now, just by like literally slumming it and starting from the bottom and getting here now. So
awesome. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to open up the floor to some questions from a representative from the RPSM Youth Committee. For those who are unfamiliar, the committee is a community-wide youth group of young leaders of high school age. They meet virtually every week at this time, Thursdays at 7 to 8 p.m., and engage in social activities, discussions, educational workshops like this one, and leadership development. If you're looking for more information or interested in signing up, your child, feel free to email Jasper at studentdevelopment@rpsmmusic.org, and we'll put the email in the chat. At this point, we're going to have Sid. I'm going to ask you to unmute. You can ask the first question, and then that'll kick us off sort of our question period.
My question is, are the people on your team from the same umbrella, or is it formed piece by piece from different organizations? Is there one format that's better than the others?
I'll let you do it. Since you unmuted first, Matt, I'll let you take that.
Fair. I hate this because it's like the quintessential cop-out answer, but it depends. it depends also on what you mean by under the same umbrella. If we're talking about the umbrella of people throughout the industry that I've forged relationships with throughout my career and have built working relationships, and if those working relationships have ended, I'm still have like a relationship with them, and I know what's going on in their careers and vice versa, and I've sort of like built up my own network and umbrella of people, then absolutely, I'm always going to try to assemble a team of people who I know already get it when I'm working with an artist, like folks that I know are going to be passionate and excited about what this artist is doing, and I don't have to bring someone on who doesn't know the artist, doesn't know me, doesn't know what we're trying to build together, and sort of like have to build that up from the ground up. But at the same time, if you don't have that umbrella, then you're definitely in a position of having to sort of build a team piecemeal. But I think once you get someone, the first member of your team, whether it be an agent, whether it be a manager, a lawyer, if you've got a really, really solid foundation with that person and you trust them and you know that they're doing really good work already, then I feel like it's typically safe to say that like you can rely on them to start helping you build your team from under their umbrella, because they've spent their career working alongside other people in the trenches, and they they forged those relationships, and really worked to maintain those relationships over time. And I think that that's, again, it's it's an industry of relationships.
Wonderful. Laura, I'll let you also answer that question. Remember, everyone, you can also put if you have questions and you're too shy, please put them in the chat.
I am going to borrow a part of Matt's response in that it depends. You want to have a team around you that will work for you. You are working so hard to perfect your craft, to give that art to the world. Want to be surrounded with people who are going to have your best interests in mind, and people who you're actually going to want to continue to work with. It's going to be important that the people who you are working with, that you want to work with them, they're going to be looking out for you. And if you are building, a big team or a team with a few people on it, it's going to be important that they are going to be able to work well with each other. This is a relationship industry, and people, they want to do their best, but people are people sometimes. So you have to make sure that whatever combination of people you have from wherever it is that they may be from, if they are working for you, that they can work together so that any of the things that may come up that are not going to advance you and your career, that people are professional enough to put it aside and make sure that everything is about you as the artist. Thompson, I think you are on mute.
Yeah, no, I'm a little embarrassed about that, but it's got to happen every one Zoom, right? Someone's got to be. Normally, I do that on purpose. This time, I didn't do it on purpose. I have a question about sort of the different roles. If somebody was going to say, I really just want only one of you, I don't want the rest. One of the ways I look at some of these roles is that the roles are needed whether or not you're hiring somebody to do them, right? And so, what are some of the things that are, I would not say easier, because wouldn't want to dismiss any of the hard work that you guys put into it, but what are some of the things, if somebody's going to say, I'm going to go with one, at the moment, I can only really choose one of these roles, what would they need to do to supplement what else, some of the other roles in terms of how they're looking at their career and where they're starting from? I didn't direct that at anybody, but I'll direct that at you, Baldeep.
Give me the hard one, eh? No, I'd say like it honestly kind of depends on what their focus is and what their strengths and weaknesses are. At the end of the day, like an artist is the CEO of their own company. They're in charge of everything to do with their career. So it's really understanding their strengths and weaknesses. If they know a lot of venues and they can book, maybe they need more help on the management end to get all the other things in line. Like the good thing, like Matt touched on it earlier, is like a manager does do a bit of everything. So sometimes it's really good to have a manager on board first, and then they can help guide to bring on the rest of the team. But it really depends on the strengths of each artist. Like I work with some artists who are phenomenal on the artist end, but just like don't want to touch the business side. So they really rely on like a PR person, a marketing agent, and all that to really work together to do it. But then I have other artists who are very capable. Like some of my favorite talks are with Max from the Arkells. Like Ashley's an incredible manager, but like Max is so intelligent that he really helps offset and helps with more aspects than a lot of other artists do. So it really depends on what they're comfortable with and who and balancing the strengths and getting people on board to really help where your weaknesses are.
Perfect. Yeah, no, Chris, you're perfect. I was going to come to you anyways.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say, yeah, Max could be a great manager himself if he ever wanted to go down that road. Really smart guy. And I was just going to say, I mean, what Baldeep said as well. It's, sometimes I think people crave to have a manager too early, sometimes just because they think it's kind of cool. It's like, talk to my manager. I'm too busy. But really, you can do a lot of stuff on your own, early days. I think it's harder to book shows on your own. I think you need someone for that. And that probably early on, you're probably not doing a lot of legal work, but it's kind of good to have, I think, a lawyer in your corner if you can have someone there for matchmaking and stuff like that as well. So it kind of goes back to that. It depends kind of answer, but I think you can do a lot on your own early days. There's a lot of information online that you can harvest to educate yourself on how things work.
Wonderful. I have a friend who has a saying. He says, life moves at the speed of trust, and a theme that kind of is reoccurring amongst us is just kind of the relationships and how important these relationships that you're having really support and sort of make or break of your career. Just to kind of put the question out there, like what makes a successful relationship with either of the partners, or just in terms of when you're working with people, what's really at the heart of kind of having something that would be meaningful and works for both parties? Laura, we'll start with you.
Communication. Communication is so important. It's really challenging to move forward or to build that trust if folks are making assumptions or not being clear on what it is that they need or what it is that they want, and that goes on both sides. So if a manager is, or not to single out the managers, if anyone on the team, sorry Matt, if anyone on the team is maybe presenting themselves as somebody who can do something that's maybe outside of their bandwidth or level of understanding, then that's an issue of communication when the artist comes and says, oh, hey, person, you said that you could do this, I need you to do this, and then there's some waffling that happens, or so it's important to be honest and have that open communication. And sometimes that communication is saying some challenging things, but with love. You need to have people on your team who can tell you no, and that will help to build trust as well. And saying no, but, or maybe no with a smile, helps to kind of improve that communication and build that trust, so you know that that person is not just trying to shut you down, but to steer you or redirect you in a way that's going to be to your benefit.
Awesome. Matt.
I mean, I've pretty much got the same answer. It's hard to beat the power of communication at the root of everything that we do. You know, it just comes back to the fact that it's a business of relationships. I think from the artist management perspective, communication and transparency from the absolute get-go ensures like the health of a relationship long term. And that's that's artist manager, but also like friendships, romantic relationships, any kind of relationship, right? I think though specifically one thing that I an exercise basically that I go through with anyone that I'm remotely interested in working with in a management capacity is to sit down, ideally face-to-face, pre-COVID, and hopefully sooner rather than later, post-COVID. But sit down face-to-face with like an hour blocked off and, you know, get a coffee, get a beer if you're of legal drinking age, and sit down across from one another or as a group if you're a band, and establish in very, very clear language, what does success look like to you right now? Like what do you as an artist view? Paint me a picture of what success looks like for you right now, so that from day one, from the jump, we are all on the same page and working collectively towards the same goal, so that I can do everything in my power to empower you as the artist and to build the team with that goal of success that you've clearly outlined for me in the back of my mind at all times. That's going to inform everything that I do for you as a manager and every decision I make for you as your manager.
Awesome. Baldeep, any other thoughts? Anything to add?
I would just echo everything they just said. Like it comes down like definitely to communication, and yeah, I feel like I'm just going to repeat everything they just said.
Totally fine. Hey, Chris, there was a question someone had asked about the book you had mentioned. I think it was San.
Yeah, I see it's in the chat. I think someone's put a link to it in the chat.
Okay.
That's a good starter book. There's also another book by Donald Passman, which is Everything You Wanted to Know About the Music Business, which is really the starter. That's where everybody starts when they want to learn about music and the law and contracts and things like that. Great introduction.
Appreciate that. Just want to say a big thank you. Thanks for the insights. Thanks for lending your time. Thanks for lending your expertise. This is a huge pleasure and really just something I'm incredibly proud of the direction of Regent Park School of Music and everything they've been doing, both in Regent Park, Jane and Finch, and across the city as they grow and as their mission really is to just spread the joy of music all around the country and maybe the world, who knows where they go. So again, thank you, Matt Maw, for being on with us. Laura Wilson, Lewis, thank you as well for being here. Baldeep Randhawa, Chris Taylor, Johnson, thank you for everything you've done, not just being here, but everything you do for the music industry. We're going to hopefully have you guys at some point in time again next year as we kind of build this out. Jasper does show notes, so on the show notes we'll make sure that the all the social handles are there. Please bug them, be bold as you look to do what you want to do next. A special thanks to Lucas, Simone, and Charlotte from the Youth Committee for supporting this event. Thanks to Stephanie Perficati and Jasper Gahunia for bringing this series to life behind the scenes. Please check back with your YouTube channel as well as Every Little Voice, as Richard said, podcast for RPSM Talks recordings. And make sure to RSVP for the next one happening April 29th at 7 p.m. I'm Thompson Egbo-Egbo, and this concludes the session of RPSM Talks, or something to that effect. That was in brackets. I don't think I was supposed to say that, but whatever. I'm just reading. Goodbye.